You're listening to Mom and Doc Talk, where we talk all things healing pans and pandas with an emphasis on homeopathy.
Hi, and welcome back to Mom and Doc Talk, Healing Pans and Pandas with Homeopathy, or I guess not with homeopathy, just healing pans and pandas. That's what we talk about. But today we're going to talk all about homeopathy. We're going to kick off the new year with some really fundamental things about the healing process with homeopathy, and then get into some more detailed stuff too about specific conditions that homeopathy can be really helpful with. But today, we're going to talk about how homeopathy works, and we're going to talk about the primary and secondary action of medicines in general, which is the main way that homeopathy works. And to me, this particular concept has helped make the skeptic in me feel a lot better about homeopathy and understanding like how it might be working, even if I can't explain the exact mechanism of action. So Jody, you're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to do a lot of talking today, and you're going to need to interrupt me when I go down those rabbit holes that I can sometimes go down. And I know I go down them, and I sometimes start talking really fast too. When I like the deeper in the hole, the faster my words come out. So I need your help to keep me from doing that.
I can do that. But I'm excited to hear you talk because this is one of those things that I felt like ate me alive in the beginning. Like
Mhm.
I needed to know how and why and I needed to like it's just like I needed to know that for sure I needed a doctor to tell me that my kid had PANS.
Mhm.
Like I just kept searching and looking for how does this work? And had I heard more about primary and secondary in the beginning,
Yeah.
I think that would have settled in a little bit and helped me, help the skeptic in me and
Mhm.
kind of help me stop searching for that answer. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. And hopefully it's okay with me saying this, but you said before we even got started recording, you're like, I'm going to be playing the confused mom today too. And not and like playing and you meant that like half jokingly but half serious, because it still can
Yeah.
be a complex thing to really wrap your brain around, right? And part of the thing that's hard to wrap your brain around is that it's actually pretty simple, and sometimes simplicity is harder to
Mhm.
understand than things that are really, really complex, right?
Yeah.
Like if you like our episode where we talked about MTHFR and all of those things, you like your brain connects and goes into that, and it's so like it's this web, and you're able to follow that. And sometimes like just stopping that process where you're trying to look for all of these intricacies and just being like, it's actually pretty simple, here's what's happening.
Yeah.
um that can be harder to wrap your head around sometimes because it
Mhm.
feels like it should be hard, right?
Yep.
So to get to the simplicity of how homeopathy works, we really need to look at just the way things work in general, right? So there's the primary action. What this means is the way that any substance impacts our body. So it's the way that the anti-inflammatory causes the reduction in inflammation. It's the way, like, COX-2 inhibitors, that it blocks a specific enzyme that makes things inflame, leads to inflammatory responses. It's the way that SSRIs are blocking the reuptake of serotonin. So it's the action that the substance has on the body. It's the way that caffeine makes us feel alert and restless and kind of agitated, the impacts that it might have on our bowels, the impacts that it has on our sleep. Every single thing that we take into our bodies has a primary action, that biochemical force that we talk about. The secondary action is the body pushing back against that thing. And the reality is our body pushes back against everything we put into our bodies, right? So
Mhm.
that's where we get some side effects from some of these medications. That's where we get the caffeine crash, where we started out feeling a little bit tired. We had caffeine in whatever form, and we felt good for a while, or we felt a certain way from the primary action of the caffeine for a little while. And then when the caffeine wears off, the body is pushing back against that biochemical force to try and restore balance. And then we end up crashing harder than we felt before we had it, right?
Yeah.
And so you're nodding your head and you're relating, Jody.
I'm good because I'm good. Like I love it when you're talking about something and I'm like, yes, this makes sense to me because
Yeah.
it does. And it's literally everything. It's medicine, it's food, it's like literally everything. I
Mhm.
would imagine the air we breathe.
Mhm.
It's in and then our bodies have response to it.
Yeah.
And
And
that
so
feels
like,
simple.
and there are varying degrees of response that we have. Like some things are more forceful on our body, and our body has a bigger force back on it.
Mhm.
Um, and so what homeopathy is doing is taking advantage of this primary and secondary action. And so the healing that we see in homeopathy is the secondary action. So what we're trying to do with homeopathy is we're trying to find something that has a primary action very similar to what you are experiencing in an unhealthy state. So if you are experiencing headaches in your unhealthy state, we're going to look for something that can cause headaches very similar to what you're experiencing when taken by a healthy person. So it has this a primary action very similar to what you are experiencing. So then when the body pushes back with the secondary action against the substance you've just added to your body, the homeopathic remedy, it is going to restore balance because it's pushing back against a symptom that is similar to what you're experiencing, and in that pushback can restore balance with the symptoms you're experiencing in dis-ease. Does that make sense, Jody?
Does.
Yeah. So the reason that we use the ultra-dilute forms of medicine, it was a thing that Samuel Hahnemann sort of accidentally stumbled upon. Um, but it's the magic here is that the lower we get with the dose of the medicine of anything that we use, the less of the primary action we're going to force on the body, but we can still elicit the secondary healing response, the secondary response, that pushback, that equal but opposite action of the body. And so we need just enough to stimulate that body to get that secondary healing response. And that's where we're looking for the minimum effective dose, to have as little of the primary action that we can to then get that secondary healing response. And this is where aggravations come in, right? Because the
Mhm.
primary action of the medicine that you're taking is very similar to the symptoms that you're experiencing in your unhealthy state. And so it feels like when you get a little bit of the primary action that is similar to what you're already experiencing, it feels worse, right? That's what the aggravation is. It's the primary action. Um, so we want to minimize that by getting as little of the primary action as we can. There's
Mhm.
some people, your family has at least one person in it, who has this, that we have to get enough of, in order to be able to stimulate that secondary healing response, that secondary action of the medicine, we have to have a little bit of an aggravation. So we have to have a little bit of the primary action for the body to be aware and sensitive enough to have that reaction. I'm going to pause and see if you want to share anything about that, or if there's any questions you have from all the stuff that I've just said.
I just wish I would have known all of this in the beginning. Because it would have like aggravations scared me. And it was now looking back, I can see that, every aggravation that Avery had was what healed her. I just didn't understand that that was the primary action. And it took me getting into homeopathy and her improving and having longer, stints where she was doing well and dosing less, pardon me, that I was like, oh, okay, it's the thing that comes after that I'm looking for. And I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on the aggravation. So just even like, I've heard you talk about this before, but it's just like right now, for some reason, my brain's like putting it all together. And it's like, oh my gosh, it was just me looking at the wrong thing. And it also, I might be jumping ahead a little here, but to the least, it was very confusing to me that we were trying to do the least amount
Mhm.
to get that healing response, because with other treatments we were
More
doing
is
the
better.
most. Yeah. And so shifting into, as we've got further along and we're stretching out doses, and I'm freaking out because if I don't give her the thing, I'm not going to keep it away. I'm not going to keep the symptoms away. And so it's really such a shift in how we think about things, and just kind of coming from a world of just pouring things on to keep things away, to really allowing the body to, or first homeopathy, to give that nudge, which could or could not be a little uncomfortable, but waiting for that secondary thing to happen, which is where the healing's at.
And that's why homeopathy is able to accomplish things that other things aren't, is because it is the body doing the acting. It's the
Yeah.
body leading to the changes that we see with homeopathy. It's not the medicine, because the secondary the secondary action of all medicines is the body pushing against the medicine. So it is the body getting back into that place that it needs to be, to have better balance, not the medicine keeping it there. So when we're using supplements like high doses of nutrients or herbs or medications, we're just focusing on that primary action. We're not looking at that secondary action. And the secondary action is what we end up taking other medications or other supplements for, because of the secondary actions that we are seeing as side effects, rather than like the body is pushing back against this thing that I put into it. It's pushing it back against this biochemical force. So that's the beauty with homeopathy, is because the improvements that we see are coming from the body itself. The body can heal. It can do amazing things, and we see it all the time when we get a cut. Like, I mean, we don't bleed. Most people, unless you have, blood disorders, don't just bleed out and die or get a horrible infection every time they like nick their thumb. Like, I mean, I have a cut on my thumb from a knife that I just wasn't cleaning correctly the other day. And nothing needed to be done, because my body has the capacity to heal. And I was in the place that I could heal. I was not in a place that I was unhealthy enough that I was susceptible to every little thing. And so this is something that we can do even with little cuts. We can do it with big things too. Our body can heal if we just give it the right nudge.
Mhm.
We're going to keep this one pretty short. I do want to say that the ultra skeptics who might be listening to this, and I would include myself I'm not an ultra skeptic anymore, but I'm still a skeptic, who might be questioning, what about mechanism of action? And the truth is, we don't know yet. There's still research being done to figure out exactly what happens to during the homeopathic preparation process and that dilution process. We know that nanoparticles are formed in some of the potencies, but not others. But we know that things do change in the process that have an impact, and we can see changes at the cellular level when homeopathic remedies are taken. So the place I have come to is, if I understand the simple parts, the basics about how medicines work in the body and how the body works when being presented with something, that's where I leave it. Like, I need to understand that, and I need to understand then how to apply it. And I'm leaving the explanation for how it works, the exact mechanism of action, to people who are far smarter than me. I mean, we're talking like researchers who are looking at like the quantum level and like physics and things like that, that I'm not smart enough for.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that they're doing this research, so that someday we can come back and have an update to this episode and say, and here's the mechanism of action behind this primary and secondary action. And this is how we can see such widespread healing happening in the body on multiple different body systems and all of that. So I will look forward to having that opportunity to update. And in the meantime, the simplicity of understanding this equal but opposite reaction, the secondary healing being the healing response from the body, and the healing coming from the body, has really helped me. And then understanding again that lowering the amount of something to get as little of the primary action as possible, also helps me with understanding like minimum effective dose. And we just have different sensitivities as
Yeah.
humans.
I think it's funny because when you say mechanism of action, I literally say outside, or quietly in my brain, I don't care. And I think I'm speaking for many moms that are well in or at the end of the healing journey, that you get to a place where like I just let it go. It didn't matter, because what I was seeing in front of my eyes was completely undeniable, and I don't care what the mechanism of action is. What I know is Avery felt better,
Yeah.
and symptoms were going away and staying away. And so it just kind of you gain a sense of confidence in homeopathy that you're seeing with your eyes, and seeing it do what other treatments weren't able to do. It's like, I just don't like, we could stop trying to figure out and I'd be okay with that. Like, I'm good.
Yeah, you've reached a different place with me than I have with that. And I will say that what I'm hearing is that you reached a point where you no longer felt the need to control. Because when you and I first met, you really cared
Mhm.
about the mechanism of action. You asked
Yeah.
me about it a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just, one of those things, right? That we get an opportunity to recognize that sometimes the need to control and like wanting to understand every little bit of details about something is like a certain desire to control things, right? To understand it and like feel like you have the opportunity to manipulate things if needed. And it's just so freeing to let go and recognize that there's very little that we can control as long as we see and watch what happens in front of us and we learn how to work with something, whether we fully understand it or not. That there's a lot of beauty in that too.
I think
And
it's so
freedom.
interesting because this is something that I feel like I learned from you and from homeopathy, because when we were kind of in this process of moving out of a house and like this big huge transition in life, and like there was something in my intuition telling me that I needed to step back and stop like trying to power fix everything and control everything. But I didn't know how to do that. Like when I met you, I didn't know. I still needed to question everything. I still needed to do all the research. And slowly over time, through the things that you were talking to me about, very lovingly and nicely explaining why, we don't have to do all the other things, and we don't have to like we don't have to give more and more and more. And just really seeing homeopathy, it was like that was the first opportunity I had in all of the chaos to
Mhm.
really see that stepping back and not trying to force and fix and all of that was okay for me to do. So thank you. That was quite freeing for me.
Well, that was a bit of a tangent, but every
Yeah.
time I have an opportunity to talk about whether we're trying to control something that is not actually ours to control and the
Yes.
suffering that we have from that, I have to take that. It's like my message in life lately is about that. So I can't help but talk about it. All right, so that's it and was there anything I missed, Jody, or anything that like felt confusing or that I went too far down on any holes or talked too fast?
No, I don't think so. But it also, if you are a mom or a dad or grandma, grandpa, whoever watching this, and you don't quite understand it yet, just hang in there. And the further you get along, the more sense it will make. And I think it's just one of those things that you have to see. Like, you're not going to get this in the first month of homeopathy. It's not going to make 100% sense. It's going to slowly start to make sense. Like a whole lot of new things will make sense. So don't be worried about it if you don't 100% get it with just this episode.
All right, we will leave it there and we'll be with you guys again next week. Take care, everybody.
I guess.
We hope you found this episode helpful, hopeful, and inspiring. We try to get a new episode out every week. You can make sure you don't miss any by following us on Spotify or subscribing to our channel on YouTube. If you want to connect with us more, join our Facebook group, Homeopathy for Pans and Pandas, where we have exclusive weekly videos and answer your questions about, you guessed it, homeopathy for pans and pandas throughout the week. If you are already a member, give us a shout out and let us know what you thought about this episode. If you aren't on Facebook and would like to reach us, you can email us at podcast@resiliencenaturopathic.com. Until next time, take care and remember, this won't be forever.